Make sure you check out our online store where we work with our graphic designer to create stunning garment and product designs that feature a wide variety of aircraft types such as British fighters, World War II aircraft, American bombers, Russian fighters and much more. You can pick your favourite designs and personalise any items within our Redbubble store that range from clothing right the way through to stationery. All of our designs feature our logo so you can show your support for the channel while getting a quality product. You can head to our website aircrewinterview.tv and click store, or go to redbubble.com/people/AC interview. Thank you and enjoy. Yeah, you went. You said you were in the UK for 2 months, and then you got picked to go to the Thunderbirds. How did this come about, and what was the process like to become a Thunderbird pilot?
So it is the process. You have to apply. So every year they'll send out to everybody who's eligible. They'll send out an application or the opportunity to apply. I applied for 3 years before I eventually got selected for the team. So you have to have a minimum, fighter pilot background. At least the minimum is 750 hours. Most people have more than that. And there's a few other requirements as far as how old you are to be able to apply. So, but I applied while I was at Shepherd, and I continued to apply. I came out for interviews 1 year and just wasn't the right year. And then I got the assignment to Lakenheath, and my wife and I were really excited because it was kind of a dream assignment to get to go out and spend time in England and go travel Europe and whatnot. And a couple weeks later, the applications for the Thunderbirds came out after we'd gotten our assignment to England. And I went to my wife and I was like, "Hey, babe, I know we're going to England, but the Thunderbirds applications just came out." And I was trying to read her face, and I was like, "Yeah, don't worry, I'm not applying." And at first her response was like, "Well, hell yeah, you're not applying. We're going to England, we're going to Europe for 3 years." And we left it at that. And a couple days later, she came to me and, she mentioned, she's like, "You never want to have any regrets in life. You never want to guess, wonder what if." And so she's like, "I want you to apply." So I applied when I was at Shepherd. And then we moved to England. I was there for a couple of weeks and then they had interviews. So I had to fly from England back to the States to go interview. And so that process is changing right now a little bit. So right now they're from here on out, they're going to kind of go back to what they used to do, which is actually they're going to try to do a flying interview as well, where you go sit in the back seat and you have to do some certain maneuvers and whatnot. But they did not have that at the time. But you go out and you basically spend an entire trip with them. So from kind of a Thursday when they show up until Monday when they fly out, and the air show in between, you spend the entire weekend with them. You spend it with the team, and just kind of get to know them, get to know how the process works, because you got to make sure that you are right for the team, that the team is right for you. And you'll find that sometimes people will just realize, "Hey, this is not for me. I'd rather be focusing on tactical stuff," or "This is really overwhelming," because there's a lot going on. And then also, you're traveling for over 200 days a year on the team normally. So you have to make sure that you're going to get along with the people on the team, So you do that. You go through a series of interviews. You interview with a 1-star and a 2-star general, and then I went back to England, wondering how it went, and then so what wound up happening is I wound up getting a phone call. I was out with my son. We were getting some trainers for him or whatever, and I got a phone call that I had made the team. I came home. My wife was down in the basement, and she had just unpacked the last box. So we had all our household goods. She had just the cellar was it was immaculate, and she was so excited. She's like, "Come downstairs, I want to show you." And she showed me this basement, and she's like, "Look, it's all done." I was like, "Oh," it hurt my heart to be like. I was like, "All right, babe, here's the good news and here's the bad news. The good news is this looks amazing. Bad news is we've got to pack it all back up." Yeah, we're moving to Las Vegas, which to go from a very charming city like Mary St. Edmunds to Sin City was a very big clash. So, but she was, there's the big sigh and then all right, let's do it, so So that's kind of how that worked for me particularly.
That's brilliant. So yeah, Trevor, what was it like going from the F-15 to the F-16 and, kind of training on that aircraft?
It was so. I enjoyed it. I'm one of those people who constantly like a new challenge, who like new things, and so getting the chance to go learn how to fly that airplane was interesting. The training was out of Holloman, New Mexico, so it was hot. We were flying Block 40s, so they were the least powerful thrust weight F-16s out there, and there was. Honestly, it was fairly easy to learn how to fly the airplane. You've got two fourth gen aircraft who handle right as far as the way the aircraft handles. It's fairly similar. The primary difference between the two is the F-15 is a center stick that's hydromechanical, right? The F-16 is a side stick that doesn't move. Technically, it moves about a quarter of an inch, but for all intents and purposes, compared to a stick that you're throwing around, it doesn't really move. And it's obviously fly by wire, so. So that was took a little bit of getting used to. The landing is a little bit different just because the F-16 has a very narrow wheelbase. So landing the aircraft took a little. The other thing is the F-16 just likes to fly, like because all the data goes through the computer and the computer tries to get it to fly. Mm-hmm. So my normal concept of pulling the power and continuing to increase backstick pressure to land allowed me. What wound up happening is I just wound up floating a lot when I was landing, and I had to learn that you actually have to kind of like force the aircraft on the ground a little bit. Not force it, but it's just a little bit of a different way that you land the aircraft. But so the basic aircraft control was and basic flying of the aircraft was fairly intuitive. It didn't take a whole lot of work to learn how to do. The big thing was trying to transition to the Thunderbird way of flying aircraft. That's what took a lot of transition. So what I mean by that is that we fly extremely close together, and when you're very, very close, there's one of the techniques that we use on the team is that we fly with full nose down trim. Right. So normally when you fly an aircraft, you like to kind of be able to take your hands off and the aircraft still flies well for a little bit, you know what I mean? And the F-16 does a very good job of that because it trims to 1G, and there's a lot of good things about it. Well, the problem is that what we do when we're doing loops or things like that, a lot of times we will intentionally go less than 1G. So when you do a loop, for example, you need to pull about 4 Gs at the bottom of the loop, and then up top you have to decrease to about a half a G.
Right.
And then you have to get back into the Gs to make it look like a circle.
Right.
And so the problem with that is that if you release the way the F-16 flies is it will go to 1G. So once you get to the top of the loop, you actually have to, if you didn't fly with a lot of nose down trim, you would actually have to push. So you'd go from like a pulling to a pushing. And there would be no way to, in that transition to that half G, and there'd be no way to, if you're flying real close, to do that and not have this bobble, this vertical bobble, right? It's just very weird to go from a pull to a push smoothly, the exact same way that the pilot next to you. So what we wind up doing is we wind up flying with full nose down trim. So in the F-16, what that means is that you're holding, the stick doesn't move, right? But you're holding 25 pounds of pressure back to maintain level flight. So it's nice because when you're in the float, now all you have to do is instead of having to push, you just like ease the pressure a little bit in your hand, and you go from 25 pounds of pressure to 22 pounds of pressure or whatever the case may be. And you have more fidelity with kind of small controlled movements. Well, the problem was for me that transitioning from where I'm used to making those small change movements with like small stick movements to a stick that doesn't move, that is controlled instead of by stick position, by pressure, took a lot of getting used to. So when I was first on the left wing, what happened was I would be trying to move the stick a little bit to get small control inputs from the aircraft, as opposed to a increase or decrease of pressure. And that would lead me to be doing a lot of this as I'm on the wing, trying to learn how to fly. So flying, the transition between flying the Eagle to flying the F-16 was not that bad. The transition to try to learn how to fly with full nose down trim on a fly-by-wire aircraft, that took a good few months of training to really dampen that out and get comfortable with that.
Absolutely. And could you tell like the difference in terms of power, like kicking in the reheat from the Eagle to the F-16? Was there a bit like an acceleration difference, or were you generally the same?
So once again, I think that kind of within the AD geek world, there's a lot of people trying to compare apples to apples on things, and it can be really tough to do because like I said, the Eagle, we normally are flying around with two bags, right? So we normally have two fuel tanks. Now, if you take off an Eagle, as we call demo clean, where you've got no missile pylons, you've got no fuel tanks or anything like that, external fuel tanks on there, like that thing will haul, right? It'll get moving real fast. Well, in the F-16, I'm in the Thunderbirds, we fly what's called the Block 52. So it is a Pratt & Whitney 229 engine, so like 29,000 pounds of thrust. And when we take off, we're always demo clean, right? We don't have centerline fuel tanks. We don't have missiles on or pylons or targeting pods or any of those things that would drag you down. So we are as clean as possible every single time. So what that means is that it is a lot of thrust. So 29,000 pounds of thrust, but we only weigh about 26 to 27,000 pounds of thrust, or 26 to 27,000 pounds when we take off. So that 1-to-1 thrust ratio, right? We actually have, and we have in excess at takeoff. And so that thing is a beast. Now, if you strip down an Eagle and you don't have anything, it's not combat ready. It's very, very similar. But I would say the biggest difference that I realized in the F-16, kind of where I was making my mistakes initially, was on my rejoins. So I've always enjoyed doing kind of aggressive rejoins, right? So you're a mile away and now you bring it in and you lock it in close. Well, what will end up happening the first couple times is that I would go and like I would expect a certain, you learn a certain level of deceleration that occurs with aircraft that you predict that so that you can kind of lock yourself into place. Well, the problem is that when you're in an aircraft that has no drag on it, right? Because you don't have any missile or anything on there that's slowing it down. Well, now that your assumption for how fast you're going to slow down goes out the window. And so I would go there, and it's like a razor blade going through the air. There's just nothing to slow it down. And so the first couple times I remember I definitely overshot, and then I have to go back because the thing just doesn't slow down. So you learn that after a couple times, but yeah, the not having any drag in that jet makes it a hot rod for sure.
Absolutely. And as number two, what was your role in the team, and did you have a favorite maneuver like over the 2020 display season? I know it's been a very difficult year, but if you can tell us that'd be great.
Yeah, so as number two, I was the left pilot. So the lead pilot is our commander and our boss. He flies in the left. I fly directly off his left wing in most maneuvers. Right, we have a few different maneuvers, but in most maneuvers, I'm flying directly off his left wing. The other responsibilities I have is that I was the chief of plans and navigations. So all of our, I had to coordinate all of our movements when we were traveling across country. To get altitude reservations, to get tankers, to fuel planning. When we did our America Strong missions, so when COVID hit, we had the opportunity to fly kind of with the Blue Angels and with ourselves across a lot of the major cities across the United States. I was the guy that was responsible for making sure that we had the fuel and the planning and the tankers and kind of
that was a big
coordinate.
Responsibility.
It was, and the problem is that this was right at the beginning of the season, and I'm not an F-16 guy, so I don't know. I wasn't familiar with the fuel burn rates of the F-16 or kind of assumptions that you need to take into account. It's a single engine, like it was just very, very different for me. So that was pretty challenging. But that was kind of the additional duty that I had this year. But as far as a favorite maneuver, I don't know. I would say it'd probably be the trail to diamond roll. So we have this maneuver where there's four aircraft that are called the diamond, right? Because they generally fly in a diamond 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so all four aircraft would get into a trail position. So they're all stacked up on top of each other. We'll point at the crowd, and then we'll go nose up. And then what happens is the boss will start to roll left, and he'll do essentially a aileron roll or a barrel roll. And in that maneuver, he will send us from that trail position to diamond. And it's a really, really challenging position for the left wing because you're in trail, so you're directly underneath him. You got two people underneath you. So any compressions that you send down make the formation look terrible. Once he sends you, you have to go really quick. So you can't roll aileron because you could clip wings. So you have to kick full rudder to get over to his left wing. But he's continuing to roll. So you're kicking rudder, you're pushing on the stick. You have to kick rudder back to stop that from happening. He's continuing to roll. So then you have to catch his wing line and then continue to roll all the way back around. It is completely disorienting the first couple times you do it. It is a very, very, very challenging maneuver, but doing it right, it's pretty cool to just go for this trail position and see the aircrafts kind of explode and like go back in this diamond as they're continuing to roll. It was a challenging position, but it was a lot of fun.
And obviously, like, we're from the UK, like I'm from the UK, and a lot of viewers are. Do you talk to each other like the Reds do? So they'd be like, smoke on, go. Is it like that kind of thing? Or how do you like narrate in the cockpit?
Yeah, so, and that's true of I would say that concept is true of any demonstration team. So the problem is that if you were flying that close together, like the arrows, the red arrows do, like, the snowbirds, the blues, the Thunderbirds, whoever it is, you have to have a cadence that
Cadence, yeah, that's it.
Predict, and you can expect. Now, different teams treat it a little different. So the blues do a little bit more of a song the way they're doing it. So they kind of do it with kind of a song associated to it. We do it with just kind of crisp commands that are done at the same speed, so you know when to do it. Because the problem is that you have to be able to predict what the flight lead is going to do. And the way that you do that is through constant cadence and knowing that, okay, based off the rate he's saying this is when I need to start reacting. Because if you will get to the point where you are moving before you see movement out of the lead. So if you are reacting to what he's doing, well, then you're going to be all over the place. You're always going to be behind, and you're always going to be adjusting. So you actually have to start moving before you even process that he has moved his jet, but you've heard and you know based off of his cadence that he's about to move it, and so that you can stay in the same position. So all demonstration teams will use some type of cadence to make sure that they are all on the same page, that all their smoke's going on and off at the exact same time, and that they're beginning their movements before and not reacting to what the flight lead's doing, if that makes sense.
So yeah, Trevor, what was your favourite? I mean, obviously, 2020 has been a difficult year for everyone, but you've done some great fly pasts. But have you had a favourite from your year joining the Thunderbirds?
I don't know. 2020 has been a tough year for everybody. I would say that kind of looking back on 2020 with the Thunderbirds in particular, the things that I always look back on and be the most happy and proud about is kind of what we did when COVID was hitting hard. So, air shows had canceled across the country, across the world. People across the United States, and I'm sure across the world, there was a fear that was going on because everything was shut down. Nobody knew how people were going to put food on the table or how we were going to get through this. We were all living in isolation, so we didn't have the support of others. And we had the opportunity, we had all these flight hours because the way that the budget works is you have the flight hours and you can't spend that money on other things. And if you don't spend it, then it goes away. And not only it goes away, but it's just lost. It's just lost money. So we had the option of just continuing to practice and fly in the desert and train. And that's what we were doing for a couple of weeks. And then we decided that we were seeing through friends and social media and things like that, what the frontline workers were doing, how they were going into the hospitals without the proper protective gear and all these, this tough stuff. And we wanted to do something to let them know, like, hey, we're here for you. We support you, and kind of show this symbol. At the same time, when we were doing that, as we flew over the hospitals to thank them, we wanted to fly over all the cities and all the suburbs to say, like, hey guys, you're in your house, like step outside. Like, I know we're all apart, but we're still together, right? Because we had a unique job to be able to do that in the air, to show while everybody was still socially distancing that we're in this together, right? And a lot of people were scared. So we did that in Las Vegas, which is our hometown, not really knowing what the results would be like. And it was overwhelmingly positive. seeing, got to see videos of kids that are out just going crazy, and like people who had been in their homes for weeks on end, months on end, and were scared, and just kind of like bring everybody together was really special. And then that kicked off what eventually became called as for us in America, we called it America Strong. Yeah. And we flew out to we did the same thing in Colorado, and then we flew out to Pensacola, and where the Blue Angels are, and we joined in with their squadron, and we started training with them, figuring out how we could fly our two formations together. And we had the opportunity to go. I mean, we had the opportunity to fly over New York, New York City, Washington D.C., and just a plethora of cities, at 500 feet, things that are never done. With the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels together in a show of solidarity, in a show of support, and that was really, really special. So yeah, looking back on kind of the 2020 time, having the chance, to thank the frontline workers, to let everybody know that, hey, we're all apart, but we're still together, was a really, really special time.
So, Trevor, how long have you been on the Thunderbirds, and what's your progression with the team?
So I joined the team at the end of 2019 for the 2020 season. And so the 2020 season was my first year on the team. Traditionally, it's a 2-year assignment on the team for officers. For enlisted, it can be quite a bit longer, but traditionally it's a 2-year assignment. There was some things that happened, so I'm actually the 2020 season is going to be the only season for me on the Thunderbirds, and we'll have a new number 2 that's coming in next year.
Okay. So overall, have you enjoyed your career with the US Air Force so far? Because we don't know where you're going to go next, but have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, honestly, it's been beyond my wildest dreams. Like I said, I'm a poor kid from a small town in Texas, and so having the opportunity to go, I mean, you've heard the story now, like to go live, across the country, to go live in Japan and travel the Pacific, spend a lot of time in the Middle East and meet some great people, fly some incredible aircraft, to go to England for, even if it was just for a little bit, to join the Thunderbirds and beyond that. I mean, it's been, I don't think that I could have ever have guessed or hoped that I'd had the opportunities that I had since being in the Air Force. So yeah, I've been very, very fortunate.
Right, we got some questions from our patrons, if you're happy to answer these, Dozen.
Absolutely.
Right, so let me get them up here. Okay, so this is from Alexander. How much truth is there in the Dos Gringos song Ballad of the Thunderbirds?
Yeah, so not a kid-friendly song, but if you get the chance to listen to Dos Gringos, Ballad of Thunderbird number 2, one thing about fighter pilots is that we all have similar problems, and that problem is generally neck and back problems, right? Particularly when you're fighting defensive BFM, right? No matter what you're doing, but if you find yourself fighting defensive BFM, right, you're craning around, you're twisting your spine to look at your dead six to maneuver in relation to the guy behind you. You're pulling 9Gs. You're looking forward to see what's going on in the HUD so that you don't go through the floor, you know what your airspeed is and things like that. And you're going back and you're just doing this to your bones as you're under an immense amount of Gs. So the one common problem that all fighter pilots have is neck and back problems, right? The problem with being Thunderbird number 2, or really either wingman, whether it's Thunderbird 2 or Thunderbird number 3, is that you are, right, if you're flying, you're looking at, you're looking right, quite a bit right, because we're very close. So you have to look almost 90 degrees right. You're pulling a lot of G's while doing it. You're making radio calls, and there's just a lot of looking right. And so neck problems are definitely an issue for wingmen on the Thunderbirds. And I only did it for 1 year, so it wasn't too bad. I didn't have anything that hurt too bad, but I know that last year our right wingman, our number 3 pilot, he had to go get some physical therapy and stuff like that, because he was looking left, the opposite, and it just, I mean, you get cramps, and you'll lock up, and you'll get out, and you'll just be like, I can look a lot better right than I can look left. I'll say that. I got a lot more mobility looking right than I do looking left.
I actually, just like a side note of here, I interviewed he was a Typhoon pilot and he got exchanged on to the F-16 CJ. And he said like he basically went up like 2 neck sizes. Is that like a true statement?
Well, it depends on so one of the other problems that you have is that we have our normal helmets, but then we also have JHMCs, so a joint helmet mounted queuing system, which is essentially it's a helmet with what we call a D, a DU. So you've got this baseball cap that weighs a lot. Now you put that moment arm up front of your nugget, and then you start pulling 9Gs. That becomes that much heavier, and all the work that you had that was messing up your neck before, now you've got that multiplied. It can definitely cause a lot of neck problems. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if your neck has to grow a little bit from jumping in and pulling a ton of Gs, especially if you got a JHMCs on.
So this is from Gundog 4314. Was the 2020 season a relatively easier season due to COVID? I imagine the families were thrilled having husbands and wives home more often. Also, what would you like to be posted to after the T-Birds 2 is completed?
So 2020 was, I don't know if it was an easier season. We were definitely home more than we were otherwise, but it was challenging because we didn't know what we were doing, right? We didn't know what was next. Normally, at least on this team, you know a year out exactly where you're going to be at every day for the next year, basically. It was very different for us because shows were constantly canceling. So there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknown. And then once we started doing the America Strong, we didn't know where we were going or when we were going. And there's a lot of unknowns for that. So it was actually a very challenging season because of all the unique challenges from dealing with things that had never been done before. I mean, we'd never flown at 500 feet over the entire city of Los Angeles. And, the team's never done a pylon turn around the tower at Denver International Airport before at 500 feet. Like that stuff had never been done before, And so there was a lot of work to try to figure out how we were going to safely do these things. But overall it was a great experience. It was a great year. I think the family was nice to have us home, but it was they never knew we could be gone the next day, right? They really never, there was uncertainties, which is more akin to what it's like being in the combat Air Force, right? As far as the next assignment, honestly, we don't know. So there's a couple different options that are on the table right now. It sounds like where the Air Force wants to send me next is going to be to go back to Japan, to go fly the Eagle back out of Japan for a little bit of time before going to school in the 2022 school year. So I don't know. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot up in the air right now, and I don't know what's next. But that's the thing about the Air Force is you enjoy where they send you and make the best of it. So we'll see.
Absolutely. And the last one, the person doesn't want to be named, but what display team across the world would you like to fly with other than the Thunderbirds? I really enjoy flying, so I think that I'd enjoy any of them, right? I put me in an airplane and I'm going to have fun flying it. So I don't know. Yeah, right. I'd say based off the audience, I need to say Red Arrows. Honestly, unfortunately, I haven't really had the chance to spend time with the Red Arrows. I was only in England for a short period of time, and so I don't really know them. The only team that I really have any experience with is Blue Angels. We got to spend quite a bit of time with them this year. So I would say based off that, it would probably be the Blue Angels just to get to go. They do a lot of things very similarly, but based off their aircraft and kind of their regulations, they do things a little bit different as well. So it'd be kind of interesting to see that as well. Yeah, I'm just going to ask a question. Yeah, I'm going to jump in here. There must be a lot of banter between the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels. There must be some banter when you get into the bar.
Yeah, so you would think it's funny because we spent quite a bit of time with them this year because we went down to El Centro, which is where their summer training is, and we trained with them there for a little bit and got to see their operations, and they saw ours, and we got to hop in their back seat and vice versa, and for some demonstrations and kind of see some differences. And it's really interesting because I totally walked in expecting like the really bad 80s movie where like there's like all this like confrontation and like
Yeah.
machismo like battling between each other and stuff like that. They could not have been more hospitable,
Oh,
to
that's
be
great.
completely honest. Yeah, no, honestly, it was really good. We got to know them pretty well when we were in El Centro, but we were only there for about a week and we were all flying, so we didn't have a ton of time to really get to know each other. But once we showed up to Pensacola for the America Strong mission, we just invaded their squadron and we started working at their desks and working with them directly. And it was we went from like two different squadrons to one squadron
Awesome.
immediately. So yeah, I totally expected a lot of the like inter-service rivalry and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're just a bunch of great people, and there's no animosity, and we knew what the mission was, and so I think that's the big thing is we had a mission that we had to get done, and so we knew that we needed to like work together on it to be able to do this well because it was a very challenging mission that had never been done before, and so we just hit the ground running and like even though we had different backgrounds and like we didn't always speak the exact same language. Just the differences between the Navy and the Air Force, we were able to very quickly be like, all right, and come up with a solution to solve that problem set. So it was pretty cool.
That's brilliant. Cheers for answering my question there. But
Yeah.
so we're going to have some personal questions here, if you're happy with this, Trevor.
Yeah,
Right. So do you have any hobbies?
I do. Oh gosh. I have a lot. I do a lot of different stuff. So where do I start? Obviously, aviation is a huge hobby of mine. So here in America, it's quite a bit easier to fly general aviation, and so I've had some pretty cool opportunities to go fly in general aviation quite a bit, and expect now that I'm not on the team and it's not going to be as demanding. As long as I'm not in Japan, I expect to be doing quite a bit more jump back into general aviation and kind of get back into that quite a bit more. I really like cars. So my very first car that I got an old 1966 Mustang, and I had it for about a month, and the engine block cracked. So I love turning wrenches on cars.
Awesome.
Here in the next couple of years, right now I got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old boy, and so I'm hoping here in the next couple of years, once they get to where they're able to actually help out a little bit and remember it, I'm gonna kind of build a car up from the frame up. Kind of a resto mod classic car, and something that gets the memories with them. So yeah, there's that. What's that?
Free labor.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. I really like cars. Let's see. We go out. We really like spending a lot of time outdoors. So one thing that was really good about living in Las Vegas that we didn't expect necessarily is yes, it is Sin City, but there's a ton of outdoor stuff to do. So there's a lot of national parks that are just absolutely beautiful that are nearby. And so we've had the chance to take the family out and go camping and hiking a lot. Awesome. So that's been a lot of fun. And then, I mean, even things down very weird things. Like I really like cooking. So I like and from kind of like a basic level. So like I'll like catch my own yeast and make like sourdough bread. Like I really like making sourdough bread, and so it's like very kind of a weird mix of things that I like doing.
Favorite aircraft you've flown?
I'm gonna say it's the F-15. The F-15C, particularly if you get it, particularly when that thing's clean, right? When you have no missiles, no pylons, no external fuel tanks or anything like that. Like that jet is just, it's a huge beast and it maneuvers really, really well. It is a hard airplane to fly very well. So that like constant, that like challenge of taking it to its limit, but not exceeding it so that you can fly it at its maximum limit. That aircraft is just an absolute beast. I love that airplane.
And is there an aircraft you wish you could have flown or would like to fly in the future?
The only one that I would say I always kind of wish I had the chance to fly the F-22 for a little bit. I flew against the F-22 a lot. And it's a really impressive machine just from a pure aerodynamic perspective. It's impressive for a lot of reasons, but its pure thrust to weight ratio with its thrust vectoring, it is just not fair. You talk about how aircraft stack up against each other and stuff like that. The F-22 is just it's not fair when it's fighting against other people, particularly within the visual range. I mean BVR as well, but within visual range, it's just it's so maneuverable. It's got so much power. I think that aircraft would be a heck of a lot of fun to fly. I remember I was a fairly young wingman in Japan, and the Raptors had come out, and we're doing some air combat maneuvering, so it's 2v1 engagement, and I'm flying. I don't know who it was with. I think it was with a very experienced instructor pilot. So I'm his wingman. The Raptor starts off behind us. We call flights on, and the Raptors knows what he's doing. He was a previous C model guy that had transitioned to the Raptor, and so he knows like, all right, I'm going to go after the more experienced guy first, take him out, so then I can switch to the young dumb guy that doesn't know what's going on, right? Which was me in this case. So he goes after the flight lead. The flight lead's doing his best, but it's not really a fair fight. They're going downhill, and he's like gunning my flight lead downhill, and I had like somehow I was a lieutenant, right? So I was like, I don't know how I woke up, and there I was like directly behind him. Wow. So I'm staring down at the ground, the ocean, right? Because we're in Japan. So I'm staring at the ocean. I see my flight lead. In front of my flight lead, I see the Raptor tail aspect gunning my flight lead. I go in because I think we had decided that we're going to do a gun only fight for that one. So no missiles. So I'm just like closing in range because I'm at like 4,000 feet. I'm trying to get inside 3,000 feet. Mm-hmm. And right as I'm about to turn the trigger on, he looks back, he sees me behind him, and he goes from this position where he's pointed down at the ground at flight lead, and he just does this.
Oh, Christ.
And then like turns back around, and it was just I remember being like, this is the most, and there's nothing I could have done. There's absolutely nothing.
Yeah, you don't know.
And I was like, this is the most unfair fight, which is how you want to fight a fight when you go to war, right? You want an unfair fight, but it was just the most unfair thing I'd ever seen, and have seen since when it comes to the air-to-air world. And so I think that aircraft would be a lot of fun to fly.
Absolutely. Oh my God, what an amazing story. But to wrap up, so can we find you online anywhere? Twitter, Facebook, anything like that, or Instagram?
Yeah, so the only kind of public account I have is on Instagram. I really took this year to try and it's been a tough year, so I've been trying to be fairly positive and this year on my Instagram account. So we had the opportunity to take a lot of in cockpit footage that we use for debrief purposes, and I was able to take those and kind of move them around because they're 360 videos. And so I've worked quite a bit this year to make some what I think are fun videos to watch, put them to some music, and just maybe add a little positive message to it. So my name on that is Dozen. So I'm actually in the process of changing my name right now. It's Dozen_T-Bird2. Since I'm leaving the team, I'm looking to change the name, but it will still be Dozen something. But if you look up my name, Trevor Aldridge or Dozen or whatever,
you'll find it.
You should be able to find it there. I've been pretty quiet for a little bit on that, but I plan on once I get that name change, I'll probably spin back up on that.
Well, Trevor, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much for coming on the channel and sharing a bit of your story. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, well, Matt, thanks for having me on. I know we've gone back and forth a little bit on this, but I'm glad we were able to finally make it happen.
Absolutely. So cheers, mate, and I hope you get well soon.
All right, thanks.